Let's face facts. Most photographers are hoarders. I mean, admit it. If you go to your refrigerator or your freezer right now and open it up, how many rolls and sheets of film do you actually have? Do you have more than you need for the next month, 2 months, 3 months? Chances are you do. And that's sort of something that we as photographers over the last 20 years have done, I think, to greater extents than maybe we ever have in the past. And I think it's because of the huge fallout that occurred, say, from 2005 through 2015 with digital, really becoming a presence on the photography scene, and analog hybrid film photographers like us watching our beloved materials disappear. So I know from myself, I used to have 3 refrigerator freezers filled with massive quantities of film that I thought I would need for decades going forward. And as you can see in this photo, this was just one of them. There were multiple versions of refrigerators and freezers like this. And I would collect film like some people collect wine. But if you look at my refrigerator freezers now, there's some really cool old holdover films that I've kept. But for the most part, all the film that I'm keeping is fresh and new. I think in 2024, because film is on such a rise right now, and all the manufacturers are scrambling to make more, not less, I want to have the freshest, best film you can possibly have. For those of you that don't know it, really high-speed films, like 3200 speed films, or really anything over 800, in my opinion, you really want to use fresh because that film doesn't freeze very well, and it really suffers from cosmic rays, it gets fog, it gets grain, it's really just becomes awful. So high-speed films, you absolutely want to use as fresh as possible. Slow-speed films, like 25, 50, 100, 200, that stuff you can freeze, especially black and white, for very long periods of time and have successful film. But I'm not really doing that as much. Now I'm buying what I need for a period of, say, 2 or 3 months. When it comes to Polaroid film, in my opinion, is really best fresh. If you look at the production number on the actual package, it gives you the date when the film was made. And it tells you that that film is really best when used within 12 months. And they're not kidding. If you use really fresh Polaroid film, if you can get stuff that's within 6 months or fewer of the actual production date, it's awesome. It's really great color. I find the contrast, everything about it's better. Once you get to that 12-month period, it's not the same film as the super fresh film. I think the colors aren't quite as good. I think it starts lacking a little bit in contrast. It gets a little bit muddy. So when I buy Polaroid film, I only buy what I'm really going to use, say, for the next 2 or 3 weeks. This gets me to another point. I'm coming to London. If you live in London, I'm going to be there starting March 22nd. I'm going to be there for about a week. If you want to get together and have a pint, send me a message, talk about photography, whatever you want. And also, I'm going to be in Limerick in Ireland. So if you're in Limerick, sometimes right around the Easter holiday, let me know. Maybe we can get together and have a pint as well. And once again, talk all things film. But then this morning, I was watching my daughter Greta's blog that she has on YouTube, where she's talking about knitting. Greta knit me this amazing Fair Isle sweater, and a lot of the sweaters and stuff that you've seen me wear here on Digital Revolution. She used a term that I'd never heard before, yarn chicken. And I had to turn to my wife, who's also a huge knitter, and say, what the hell is yarn chicken? Yarn chicken is a term that I'm not sure how widely used it is, but when knitters go to buy yarn, they're kind of playing chicken with how much yarn do I need to buy to complete the project. Yarn is expensive. They don't want to overbuy. So they're kind of playing chicken with how much do you really need in order to finish that sweater. Turns out that the sweater Greta was working on, she doesn't have enough yarn. And the manufacturer, of course, is out of stock. So it's going to be, it could be months before she can finish this product. And I think about that in terms of my own travels. Whenever I go somewhere, I always go, well, how much film do I really need? And nowadays I say, are there stores where I'm going that sell the material that I'm using? Because I would much rather buy it there than have to lug the stuff through the TSA and all that kind of stuff. It's just a nightmare. So when I'm coming to London, if any of you know a great store that sells Polaroid 600i type film, please let me know. That's something that I'm going to be looking for. I'll probably bring, I don't know, 5 or 10 boxes with me, but I'm hoping not to have to carry more than that. By the way, if you are traveling anytime flying with the new Polaroid materials, absolutely get it hand inspected. Don't run it through the x-ray machine, not even the one for your carry-on. It will nuke your film. You absolutely want to have it hand inspected. So I don't like playing chicken when I travel with my own film. And I can think of times when I was on photo shoots and I actually ran out of film. So I'm gonna tell you my story, and in the comments, tell me your worst film chicken story. I was in Cape Cod, I was out in Provincetown and Wellfleet, photographing my youngest daughter, Ilsa, for some artworks I made back probably around 2014. And at the time, I was working with a Kodak Hawkeye camera, and I had I probably picked maybe 10 or 15 rolls of Tri-X 400TX with me, thinking that would be enough for like 3 days worth of shooting and having fun. And of course, we get there and it's the most amazing light ever. I find 3 of the most amazing locations ever, and I blow through all, and I mean all of the film on the first day. So the rest of the time, we had a wonderful vacation, but there was no photography happening. And ever since then, I'm much more judicious about how much film I bring and realistically what I'm gonna need and maybe could really go through. When Eve and I were on our residency at Castle Hill in Truro this last December, I brought, I think it was 15 boxes of Polaroid 600 with me. And I'd already done a little research and knew that on the other end of the Cape, there was a Target that had Polaroid 600 in stock. And halfway through our residency, I needed to drive that hour down to pick up more Polaroid. So playing chicken with film and travel never is fun, but tell me your best story. Well, let's talk about photographic chemistry. Are we playing chicken with photographic chemistry? And I think in a lot of cases we are. Those of you that remember back in 2019 when Tentinol filed for bankruptcy, it was eventually restructured with their employees. But when that company went for bankruptcy, it sent shockwaves across the photographic community because they supply all sorts of chemicals, not only for the liquid part of our end, but also for film manufacturing. So we needed Tentinol to survive. And I, for one, took away from that sort of announcement that, wow, I hope to God the photographic industry is going to diversify more and not just be relying upon 1 or 2 sources, because that's too scary. We need multiple sources supplying our chemistry, specifically when it comes to color chemistry. Now, in black and white, I, for the most part, mix all of the stuff myself from scratch, with the exception of real long-lived developers like Rodinal, PMK, and Diafine. But Diafine is another classic story. It's not a published formula. There are some people who are doing knockoffs of it, but the actual formula is not published. And as a result, Diafine kind of went out of production for a couple of years there. I've been writing about it since 2007 here on the Digital Revolution, and I love it. So it's back in production now. I bought 4 gallons worth of it, and I'll probably buy 1 or 2 more because it's a developer that I love. Once again, I can't mix it myself, and I just don't want to see it disappear from my ability to use for my films. C41 though is even scarier because in black and white, I have other developers I could use if I had to, but C41, E6, ECN2, those are very specific universal developers for those particular materials. And I'm not convinced that we have enough diversity of manufacturing of our color materials. So this last weekend, Jobo and ADOX both announced that they're coming out with C41 kits, ECN2 kits, in the case of Jobo and E6. And I think that's really great. But who's making the chemistry for these companies? Is this just one major company's chemistry being rebranded a dozen different times? Or are there multiple manufacturers and I don't have to be paranoid about our chemical production? So all this just gets into us as photographers in 2024 taking a little bit more ownership of who makes our materials. How available is that? And are we really relying upon a single source? We don't want to go down that road ever again. We want to make sure that we have multiple sources of production. I feel really comfortable about film in 2024. We're just totally on the upswing. Chemistry, in particular color, I'm still a little worried about. Can't wait to hear your thoughts about this. Can't wait to hear your film chicken stories. Thank you very much for listening. Now go shoot some film.